6:45 a.m., November 2, 1943. 180 miles southeast of Rabaul, flying 50 feet above a dark and empty sea. 8 B-25 Mitchells race toward the most heavily defended harbor on Earth. 367 anti-aircraft guns. Nearly 400 Japanese fighters. Cruisers, destroyers, and an invasion force that can still kill the Marine landing on Bougainville if it sorties today. In the lead aircraft sits Major Raymond Harold Wilkins, 26 years old, 87 combat missions, the very last survivor of the original 3rd Bombardment Group that reached Australia in February 1942. He woke up this morning absolutely certain he will not see another sunrise. This is the story of Bloody Tuesday over Simpson Harbor. The day one man flew into hell alone so the rest of his squadron could live. The day the 5th Air Force proved it could crack the toughest nut in the Pacific, and the price it paid to do it. Hit that like button right now because this one is raw, real, and almost forgotten. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We're going down to masthead height with the man who refused to come home without finishing the job. Let's roll. The 8 B-25 Mitchells fly so low the salt spray kicks up against the bellies and smears the windscreens, turning the world into a blurred watercolor of gunmetal ocean and red sunrise. The engines roar at full military power, a deep, angry snarl that vibrates through every rivet and bone. The ocean is a dull gunmetal gray under scattered cloud, the sun still low and red behind them, painting the wave tops the color of fresh blood. Major Raymond Harold Wilkins, 26 years old, on his 87th combat mission, the very last survivor of the original 3rd Bombardment Group that arrived in Australia in February 1942, sits in the left seat of the lead aircraft, call sign Fifi. His hands are steady on the yoke and throttles, but inside his chest his heart is hammering like a rivet gun. He has not told anyone that he woke up this morning with the absolute certainty that he will not see another sunrise. He woke before the bugle, lay on his cot in the humid darkness of the tent at WWII, staring at the canvas above him while mosquitoes whined, and felt it settle in his gut like a cold stone. Today is the day. He dressed without waking his tent mate, walked to the mess tent, drank coffee he didn't taste, and wrote no letter because there was no one left to write to who would understand. Below and ahead lies Rabaul, Simpson Harbor, New Britain. The Pearl Harbor of the South Pacific. A volcanic caldera turned fortress, ringed by jungle ridges and 367 anti-aircraft guns of every caliber from 75mm down to 13mm machine guns. Nearly 400 Japanese fighters, 200 from the base fields at Lakunai, Vunakina, Rapopo, Tobara, and Karavat, plus another 173 fresh carrier aircraft flown in from truck only yesterday, the elite air groups of Zuikaku, Shokaku, and Zuho, pilots who have been fighting since China and still believe themselves invincible. The harbor itself is a jewel box of steel. 8 heavy cruisers, a dozen destroyers, oilers, transports, submarine tenders, all riding at anchor under the protection of the greatest concentration of naval power Japan has left in the South Pacific. The briefing 3 hours earlier in the humid, mosquito-filled ops hut at Dobadura, New Guinea, had been brutally short. Colonel Bill Ben, commander of the 3rd Bomb Group, stood at the front with a pointer and a map that looked like a dartboard with Rabaul at the bullseye. Gentlemen, your job is to keep the Jap Navy in port today. The Marines hit Empress Augusta Bay on Bougainville yesterday. If those cruisers and destroyers in Simpson Harbor sortie south, the beachhead dies. You are to go in low, skip bomb the heavy stuff, strafe everything that moves and get out. Some of you, most of you, will not be coming back. That is all. No one argued. No one asked questions. They simply filed out, lit cigarettes with shaking hands, and walked to their planes through air already thick with the smell of aviation gas and nervous sweat. Wilkins knew the numbers better than anyone. By sundown 45 American airmen would be dead or missing. He had watched every man from his original group die over the last 20 months. Some burned alive over the Owen Stanleys when their engines quit in cloud, some ditched in the Coral Sea and were never found, some simply vanished on long-range searches with no radio call, swallowed by the same ocean that now slid beneath his wings. He was the last one still flying combat. The rest were ghosts riding in the empty seats beside him, watching with eyes he could no longer meet. He checks his instruments one more time. Feel good. Oil pressure steady. The 8.50 calibers in the nose and side packs hot and loaded, 800 rounds per second when he squeezes the trigger. Fifi is one of the new Strafer B-25s, modified at Eagle Farm in Brisbane with 4 fixed guns in the nose and 4 more in blister packs on the fuselage sides. Enough firepower to saw a destroyer in half if you get close enough. And they're going to get very close. The plan is suicide in its simplicity. come in at masthead height, 50 to 100 feet, skip 500-pound bombs across the water like stones into the hulls below the waterline, strafe the decks to suppress the AA gunners, and run for home before the entire Japanese Air Force arrives. It is a tactic born of desperation and perfected in blood over the last year. Most of the men who perfected it are dead, shot down over La, ditched off Cape Gloucester, burned in the wreckage of aircraft that never made it back to Port Moresby. The survivors refine the technique. Approach at wavetop height so radar can't track you, come in fast enough that gun crews have only seconds to react, release the bombs at 200 yards so they skip like flat stones and punch through the thin hull plating below the waterline, strafe continuously to keep heads down, then climb and run like hell. Japanese radar has had 30 minutes warning. The Zeros will be climbing already. Wilkins thumbs the mic, voice calm, almost conversational, the soft Virginia drawl that has become the soundtrack of 100 briefings and 1,000 nightmares. All right, boys. Feet dry in 5. Let's go down and say hello. The formation drops to 50 feet. Salt spray lashes the windscreen. The 8 bombers tighten into a ragged V, engines snarling at full throttle. The coastline appears ahead, dark green jungles sliding down volcanic ridges to meet turquoise water that suddenly turns the deep indigo of Simpson Harbor. The air is thick with the smell of coral and cordite even before the first gun fires. Then the first gun fires. A heavy battery on the northern ridge. A black puff 200 yards ahead, then another, then a dozen, then the sky simply erupts. 367 guns, Japanese 75mm, 40mm Bofors copies, 25mm pom-poms, 20mm Oerlikons, all tracking 8 silver bombers flying straight at them at 240 miles per hour and 50 feet off the deck. The air becomes a solid wall of tracer and shell bursts, a red and black lattice that no aircraft should be able to fly through and live. Wilkins pushes the throttles to the firewall and drops to 30 feet. The other 7 B-25s follow, engines screaming. The harbor opens before them like a jewel box of death. Cruisers, destroyers, transports, oilers, all riding at anchor, crews running to battle stations, AA guns swinging toward the madmen coming in low and fast. Wilkins's thumb finds the gun button. The world narrows to a tunnel of fire and salt spray and the roar of 8.50 calibers hammering in perfect unison. They are inside the fortress now, and there is no way out but through. Wilkins pushes the throttles to the firewall and drops to 30 feet. The other 7 B-25s follow, engines screaming like banshees in the thin tropical air, propellers clawing for every last knot of speed. The harbor opens before them like a jewel box of death. Cruisers, destroyers, transports, oilers, all riding at anchor under the shadow of the volcanoes, crews running to battle stations in perfect Japanese discipline, AA guns swinging toward the madmen coming in low and fast over the water. The morning sun glints off brass and steel and the polished barrels of guns that have never seen targets foolish enough to fly straight at them. Wilkins's thumb finds the gun button. At 600 yards he opens fire. 8.50 calibers hammer in perfect unison, a sound like the sky ripping open. Tracers streak ahead like angry red hornets, every fifth round a glowing coal that leaves a burning line across the retina. The first target is a Fubuki-class destroyer, gray and sleek, riding high in the water, her pagoda masts dark against the green hills. Wilkins walks the stream of fire across her deck from bow to stern with the calm precision of a man mowing a lawn. Brass casings cascade into the cockpit, ringing off the armor plate like hail on a tin roof, piling ankle-deep around his feet. His co-pilot, Lieutenant Jack Mandelbloom, 22 years old, on only his 4th combat mission, face white as paper, works the bomb release with hands that will not stop shaking. At 300 yards the destroyer's deck erupts as 800 rounds a second tear through steel and flesh. Men on the twin 25mm mounts are swept away like leaves in a hurricane, bodies tumbling over the rail in red sprays. The bridge windows shatter. A 5-inch gun crew is cut down where they stand, the gun captain's body folding over his own weapon like a broken doll. At 200 yards Wilkins releases. 2 500-pounders drop with delayed fuses, hit the water flat, skip once, twice, then slam into the destroyer's hull just below the waterline amidships. The double explosion lifts the entire ship bodily, a hideous metallic groan echoing across the harbor. A fraction of a second later her forward magazine detonates, torpedoes, shells, depth charges cooking off in chain reaction. The destroyer simply disappears in a tower of orange flame and black smoke that climbs 1,000 feet into the morning sky, raining steel and burning men into the water. Wilkins is already past, climbing hard to 200 feet, banking left on instinct more than control. His vertical stabilizer is gone, shredded by a 25mm burst that came so close he felt the heat through the cockpit glass. Hydraulic fluid streams behind him like blood from a severed artery. The airplane wants to roll right, yawing drunkenly as the ruined tail bites air wrong. He fights the stick with everything he has, left arm burning where a fragment has torn through his flight jacket and into the meat of his shoulder. Blood soaks his sleeve warm and sticky. Behind him the rest of the squadron presses the attack with the desperate courage of men who know they are already dead and simply refuse to lie down. 2 more destroyers take skip bomb hits. One lifts at the bow and settles by the stern, already sinking. A transport bursts into flame from stem to stern as burning aviation gas from ruptured deck tanks runs into her holds. But the Japanese fighters are arriving now, Zeros from the carrier groups, fast, agile, already in perfect position because they have been scrambled 30 minutes ago when radar first painted the American formation crossing the Solomon Sea. One B-25 explodes in midair as a Zero's 20mm cannon finds its port wing tank. The aircraft simply disintegrates, wings folding like paper, fuselage tumbling end over end into the harbor in a geyser of steam and burning fuel. No parachutes. The burning wreckage cartwheels across the water, trailing fire like a comet. Another Mitchell rolls inverted, trailing flame from both engines, and hits the water at 200 miles per hour. The impact is catastrophic. The bomber skips once, twice, then breaks apart, aluminum skin peeling away like orange rind. 2 men are thrown clear, but the harbor is already alive with Japanese patrol boats racing to pick up survivors for interrogation. Wilkins counts in his head, voice calm over the intercom even as blood drips from his fingers onto the yoke. 6 left, including his own. His number 1 engine is overheating, temperature needle pinned in the red. Oil pressure dropping fast. The tail is a laced doily of bullet holes flapping in the slipstream. Hydraulic fluid is gone. The control cables are all that keep Fifi in the air. But she is still flying, still answering the rudders, still carrying him forward. Ahead, a heavy cruiser, Chikuma or Mogami class, 8 8-inch guns already swinging toward the retreating bombers, begins to fire. If those guns get ranged in, the rest of the squadron dies in the next 60 seconds. The cruiser is turning to bring its full broadside to bear, secondary batteries already spitting 5-inch shells that burst in black clouds above the water. Standard procedure says withdraw. Mission accomplished. 1 destroyer confirms sinking, harbor disrupted. Get out while you still can. Wilkins looks left at Mandelblum. The kid's face is the color of ash, eyes wide, waiting for the order that will take them home. Wilkins makes his choice. He rolls Fifi hard left, pushes the dying bomber into a shallow dive, and turns back toward the cruiser. Mandelblum understands immediately. They have no bombs left. This is pure strafing run, just 8 guns and whatever courage they have left. The cruiser is 800 yards ahead, already firing. Every AA mount on the ship swings toward the lone madman coming straight at them. The air becomes a solid wall of tracer, 40mm, 25mm, 13mm machine guns, all converging on one battered B-25 that has no business still being in the sky. Wilkins flies into it. Standard procedure says withdraw. Mission accomplished. 1 destroyer confirms sinking, harbor disrupted. Get out while you still can. Wilkins has done his job. He has earned the right to live. Every rule in the book, every instinct honed over 86 previous missions, every ounce of self-preservation screams at him to bank right, climb into the scattered cloud, and run for home while the rest of the squadron still has a chance. The smart play. The survivable play. The play any sane pilot would make. Wilkins looks left at Mandelblum. The kid's face is the color of ash, eyes wide, lips bloodless, waiting for the order that will take them out of this hell. Mandelblum is 22 on his 4th combat mission, and he has just watched men he ate breakfast with 3 hours ago die in fire and water. He is waiting for the word that means they might live to see another sunrise. Wilkins makes his choice. He rolls Fifi hard left, shoves the throttles forward on engines already redlined, and pushes the dying bomber into a shallow dive straight back toward the heavy cruiser that is swinging its 8-inch guns toward the retreating B-25s. Mandelblum understands immediately. They have no bombs left. This is pure strafing run, just 8 guns and whatever courage they have left. Mandelblum's mouth opens but no sound comes out. He simply reaches for the co-pilot's yoke to help hold the aircraft steady, because he knows what is coming and he is not going to let his pilot do it alone. The cruiser is 800 yards ahead, already firing. Every AA mount on the ship, 40mm Bofors, 25mm triplets, 13mm machine guns, swings toward the lone madman coming straight at them. The air becomes a solid wall of tracer, red, green, yellow streams converging into a glowing tunnel that no aircraft should be able to fly through and live. The cruiser's secondary battery opens up, 5-inch guns that can punch through armor at this range. Shells burst in black clouds that bloom and die around Fifi like poisonous flowers. Wilkins flies into it. The windshield shatters. Glass explodes into the cockpit in a glittering storm. Shards slice across Wilkins's cheek, his neck, his hands. Something punches through his left shoulder, hot, wet, a hammer blow that spins him half out of the seat. Blood sprays across the instrument panel. He grunts once, a sound more animal than human, and keeps the trigger down. The 8.50s continue to hammer, brass casings pouring into the cockpit in a golden waterfall, piling around his boots until he is standing in spent cartridges. The cruiser's bridge disappears under a storm of .50 caliber. Deck crews dive for cover or are cut down where they stand. The ship's captain, a man who has survived China and the Solomons, is thrown against the bulkhead as bullets punch through the armored glass of the bridge windows. Metal peels away like paper. The cruiser's gunnery officer dies at his station, hands still on the director controls. The big 8-inch turrets stop tracking, the men inside them suddenly more interested in living than killing. The B-25 is coming apart. Holes appear in the wings like black flowers blooming in aluminum skin. The port engine coughs, seizes, windmills uselessly. Wilkins feathers it with his right hand while his left arm hangs bloody and useless. The aircraft yaws violently from asymmetric thrust. He fights it with rudder and aileron and sheer will, sweat mixing with blood on his face. He is inside the cruiser's minimum depression now, the big guns cannot lower enough to hit him. Only the close-in weapons remain. A 25mm mount on the cruiser's bow erupts in flame as Wilkins's guns find it. The gun crew is swept away. The cruiser's deck is a slaughterhouse, bodies strewn like broken dolls, blood running in the scuppers. Wilkins keeps the trigger down until the belts run dry, the 8 guns clicking on empty chambers. He releases the trigger, hauls back on the yoke with everything he has left. The shot-up airframe groans but responds. Fifi clears the cruiser's mast by 20 feet, close enough that Wilkins can see the white-faced Japanese sailors staring up at him from the signal bridge. Behind him the cruiser's guns fall silent, every mount either destroyed or abandoned. The ship is no longer tracking the rest of the squadron. His squadron is clear. Wilkins turns for home on one engine, bleeding, aircraft dying beneath him. The harbor is behind him now, a cauldron of smoke and fire and secondary explosions as burning ships light the morning sky. Zeros swarm like hornets, 8, 10, 12 of them, the carrier groups finally fully airborne and furious. His gunners fire until ammunition runs dry. The top turret gunner, Sergeant Oscar Pouland, gets 1-0 in a deflection shot. The fighter rolls, trailing smoke, and spins into the harbor. The waist gunner gets another burst off before his guns click empty. Then the engine quits. The number 1 engine, the last one still turning, coughs once, twice, then dies with a sound like a giant clearing its throat. Sudden silence except for wind howling through the 100 holes in the fuselage and the scream of Zeros diving for the kill. Wilkins glides, trims for best glide speed, 90 knots, tells the crew over the dead intercom to prepare to ditch. His voice is calm, almost gentle, the same voice that has talked 100 crews through 100 missions. Feet up, flaps up, hit the water parallel to the swells. We've done this before, boys. Easy does it. The ocean rushes up, dark green and hungry. He lines up parallel to the 4-foot swells, flaps up, gear up. The B-25 hits hard. The nose digs in instantly. Water explodes over the cockpit in a white avalanche. Metal screams as the fuselage buckles. Wilkins is thrown forward against his harness so hard the breath is driven from his lungs. The bomber slews sideways, breaks in half just aft of the wing root. The forward section, cockpit and bomb bay, flips once and comes to rest upside down, half submerged. The tail section sinks immediately. Cold salt water pours in through the shattered windshield and the 100 bullet holes. Wilkins releases his harness with fingers that will not work properly, pushes Mandelblum toward the overhead hatch. The kid is bleeding from a head wound but moving. Wilkins follows, wounded arm useless, using his legs and right arm to claw his way up through the hatch as the cockpit fills. The bomber is going down fast, sucking them with it. He breaks the surface gasping. The co-pilot is 10 feet away, clinging to a piece of debris. The Zeros circle once, low, curious. One pilot waggles his wings, a salute or mockery impossible to tell, then they bank away toward Rabaul, job done. Wilkins tries to swim. His left arm is dead weight. Blood clouds the water around him. The co-pilot swims over, grabs him under the arms, tries to keep his head up. They float together for 40 minutes, maybe less. Wilkins's vision tunnels. The pain is distant now, like something happening to someone else. He thinks of the girl in Australia waiting for a letter that will never come. He thinks of the Squadron, 5 planes climbing away, trailing smoke but climbing. He thinks they'll make it. Then the ocean takes him. The co-pilot holds on as long as he can, but the major's weight and the blood loss are too much. He lets go or Wilkins slips away, accounts differ. The last survivor of the original 3rd Bombardment Group goes under without a sound. The Pacific keeps its own. He fights his way out through the overhead hatch, wounded arm useless, lungs burning with salt and blood and the last lungful of air he took before the ocean closed over him. The water is cold, a shock after the furnace heat of the cockpit, and it pours in through every hole the Zeros punched in Fifi's skin. Wilkins uses his legs and his one good arm, kicking against the suction as the bomber drags him down. The aluminum frame of the hatch scrapes skin from his knuckles. He does not feel it. He only feels the need to get clear, to give the kid a chance. Mandelblum is right behind him, half-dazed, bleeding from the scalp, but moving. They are the only two who make it. The Pacific claims Fifi and the rest of her crew with the quiet indifference of something that has taken thousands and will take thousands more. The tail rises one last time, a broken silver cross against the morning sky, then slides under without ceremony. Bubbles mark the grave for a minute, maybe 2, then nothing. Pooland in the top turret, the waist gunners, the radio man, all gone. The ocean closes over them like a fist. Wilkins breaks the surface, gasping, coughing seawater, tasting blood and aviation gas. The sun is higher now, turning the harbor into hammered gold. Smoke towers over Rabaul, black and greasy, carrying the smell of burning ships and burning men. The Zeros circle once, low, curious. One pilot banks close enough that Wilkins can see the red Hinomaru on the wing and the white scarf of the pilot fluttering. The Japanese dips his wings, salute or mockery, impossible to tell. Then they are gone, climbing back toward the fortress they still believe is invincible. Wilkins floats on his back, left arm trailing like dead weight, blood clouding the water around him in slow red ribbons. The pain is distant now, wrapped in cotton. Shock and blood loss doing their work. Mandelblum swims over, grabs him under the arms, tries to keep his head up. The kid is crying without sound, tears cutting clean tracks through the soot and blood on his face. "Hold on, Major. Just hold on." Wilkins tries to answer but only manages a croak. The salt water stings the hole in his shoulder, stings the cuts on his face, stings his eyes. He thinks of the girl in Australia, dark hair, quick laugh, the way she said his name like it belonged to her. He thinks of the letter he wrote last night and never mailed. He thinks of the 5 B-25s climbing away to the south, trailing smoke but climbing. He thinks they'll make it. 40 minutes later, Wilkins slips beneath the surface for the last time, still trying to keep his head up so the kid can swim clear. Mandelblum holds on as long as he can, fingers locked in Wilkins's flight jacket, but the Major's weight and the blood loss are too much. He feels the grip slacken, feels the body go heavy. He lets go or Wilkins slips away, accounts differ. The last survivor of the original 3rd Bombardment Group goes under without a sound, eyes open, staring up at the sun through 10 feet of green water. The Pacific keeps its own. The co-pilot is rescued 3 days later by a Catalina out of Tulagi, dehydrated, sunburned, half-mad with thirst and grief. He is the only survivor of Fifi. They wrap him in blankets, pour water into him, ask questions he cannot answer yet. When he can finally speak, he tells the story once, to intelligence officers who need to know if the mission succeeded. 2 ships sunk. 1 heavy cruiser silenced. 5 B-25s saved. The numbers go into the official report, neat columns on mimeographed paper that will be filed and forgotten by men who never smelled the smoke over Simpson Harbor. The rest, the choice, the courage, the last look at a 26 years of life flashing past in salt water and blood, stays with the ocean. Major Raymond Harold Wilkins, 26 years old, 87 combat missions, the last man standing from the original 3rd Bombardment Group, is awarded the Medal of Honor posthumously. The citation is read aloud at bases across the Pacific, crackling over loudspeakers while men stand at attention in the tropical heat, hats over hearts. The voice on the radio is calm, official, incapable of conveying what Mandelblum saw. A man who could have run and didn't. Who turned back into hell so 5 other crews could live. Who died doing it. The medal is presented to his parents in a quiet ceremony in Norfolk, Virginia. His mother's hands shake so badly she cannot hold it. His father stands ramrod straight, eyes fixed on a point somewhere beyond the horizon. They will keep it in a cedar box on the mantle for the rest of their lives, next to a photograph of a young man in a flight jacket smiling like the war will never touch him. The girl in Australia receives the telegram in January. She is working in a hospital ward full of wounded Marines when the sister brings it to her. She reads it once, folds it very small, and goes on making beds. That night she sits on the veranda of the nurse's quarters and cries until there is nothing left. She keeps his letters in a tin box under her bed for 50 years. When she dies, her children find them and read the last one, dated October 28, 1943. If I don't come back, don't be sad too long. Find someone who makes you laugh the way I never got the chance to. Live twice as hard for both of us. I love you. Ray. And somewhere in the cold depths off Rabaul, 8.50 calibers and a broken bomber named Fifi keep watch over the last of the old breed, waiting for the rest of us to remember what real courage costs. The Pacific keeps its own. But sometimes, on quiet nights when the moon is full and the trade wind shifts just right, the old hands at the bars in Townsville swear they can hear it. The low snarl of twin right cyclones coming in low over the water, the chatter of 8 guns that never run dry, and a soft Virginia voice on a frequency no radio can find anymore, calm as Sunday morning, saying, "All right boys. Feet dry in 5. Let's go down and say hello." The official tally for November 2, 1943 reads like a butcher's bill. 8 B-25 shot down. 9 P-38s lost. 45 American airmen dead or missing. 7 Japanese ships sunk or crippled. Rabaul's naval threat to Bougainville neutralized for weeks. Cold numbers on a page. But those numbers had names. And one of those names was Raymond Harold Wilkins, 26 years old, who could have flown away after his first run and no one would have blamed him, but turned back into the teeth of a heavy cruiser so 5 other crews could live. He never saw the results. He never knew the Marines held Bougainville because the ships he bled for never left harbor. He never got to open the letters waiting for him in Australia, or keep the promise to the girl who still had his ring. The Medal of Honor came posthumously. His parents accepted it in silence. The co-pilot who survived the ditching carried the story for 70 years and never told it the same way twice without crying. Ray Wilkins was the last man standing from the original 3rd Bombardment Group. On November 2, 1943, the Pacific made sure there would never be another. If this story hit you in the chest the way it hits us every single time we stand on that runway at WWII in our minds, do 3 things right now. Smash that like button. Every like tells the algorithm to show this to someone who needs to know what real courage looks like at 50 feet in full throttle. Subscribe and hit the bell. We bring you these stories every week, straight, no filter. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from, and had you ever heard of Ray Wilkins before today? Because the kid who flew 87 missions and made number 88 his masterpiece deserves to be remembered by more than the ocean that kept him. Lock in. This is Wartime Zone. We'll see you in the next fight.